Hello there, and welcome to the first of our Good Governance webinars for 2021, where we will be looking at a series of topics, today's being cyber resilience. My name is Tracy Bird, and I run the SCVO Information Service and SCVO's brand new Trustees Network. We've created the Trustees Network to provide support and guidance for members of boards and committees across Scotland. Through the network, you can find information and news on relevant topics, e-learning modules, and SCVO's own Good Governance Checkup, and also attend webinars like tonight where you can hear from experts and share your own learning and experience. I'm delighted that we have with us today Julie Hutchison from Aberdeen Standard Capital, who are sponsors of the SCVO Trustee Network. Julie, would you like just to say a few words on what we're hoping to achieve with the network?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy, and hello, everyone. Sorry, I can't see all of you as we would normally do, getting together in person. But Aberdeen Standard Capital is delighted to be sponsoring this Trustee Network series with SCVO. Normally at this time in the year in Scotland, we'd be looking forward to getting across to Glasgow in a couple of weeks, going to the SEC for a couple of days at the gathering, a fantastic way to get 2 days of really intense workshops and just catch up with people that That can't happen this year. So we were really delighted to find another way that we could still support SCVO getting together online as the way that we do things right now. And just as a quick mention of other sources of support online just now, two quick things from Aberdeen Standard. We've got a free guide, which is all about how to write an investment policy statement. It's called Policy Matters, and that's available on our website to download. I think there'll be a wee link that's available afterwards. And also next Thursday at 11:30, we're running a free webinar all about young trusteeship, supporting young charity trustees, whether you're looking ahead to your first role or whether you are new in role and looking for some support. So again, details of that, that's on my LinkedIn post or on our Twitter account. So I'll pop some details in the chat, but just look forward to working with SCVO on this brilliant new initiative. And back to you, Tracy.
Thanks, Julie. So we're running these webinars as we recognise that good governance can make or break an organisation. And as the world has changed, it's more important than ever that trustees are supported as they rebuild and recover. And in any rebuilding, cyber resilience is vital, especially as so many of us are now working from home and boards are meeting virtually. Today, we've got Alison Stone, SCVO's own cyber resilience expert, to look at how trustees can make their organisations cyber secure. Hi, Alison. Before we start, though, I thought I'd ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how cyber resilient do you think your organisation is? And that's where 1 is not at all and 10 is totally resilient. You've got it covered. So what do you all think? Oh, we look like we're getting some good responses here. Okay, somewhere in the middle, I would say. Yeah, we've got, nobody's a 10 out of 10, and that's probably why you've all came tonight, so that's good. Thanks for taking part in that. We'll also, if we've got time, we'll ask that question again at the end of the session, and just to see if Alison has managed to change your minds on that. And okay, next, I'm going to ask you another question, and this is just really to get a sense of where you're at right now. So I want to know, right now, which of these does your organisation do? And you can tick as many that apply. So do you back up data regularly? Do you protect your organisation from viruses? Have you got passwords? Is there an education programme for staff and volunteers on phishing attacks? Or perhaps there's other things that you do. And if you do, put the comments in the chat, then we can have a look at that and we can learn from each other as well. Great. So I hope you're impressed with that, Alison. I certainly am. That's brilliant. Thank you for taking part in that. And we've got setting up MFA for access to Office 365. That means nothing to me, but I'm sure that'll...
But that's good. That's really good.
Good. Well, that's interesting. And thank you for taking part in that. So certainly this is not my area of expertise. So now Alison's going to tell you how you can make your organisation more cyber resilient We're recording the webinar, so will be available to download on the website later. And I just encourage you to use the Q&A facility as we go to ask questions, and the chat box to share your own experiences and thoughts. Thanks, Alison. Over to you.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Tracy. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming along this miserable evening. It's great to be here, and it was actually great to see the results of those polls. It was very encouraging to see that there's a fair amount of cyber resilience work being undertaken. I can't downplay, as you would not expect me to do, the importance of cyber resilience. It's a really important field. I was just saying to my colleagues before we came to do this webinar, Barclays have put out a report today that online fraud in 2020 was the biggest year ever. We've seen huge amounts of scams and phishing and all sorts of bad stuff that's really accelerated and taken advantage of the pandemic since we've been working from home. So I have promised my colleagues I will not scare you too much. So I'll try really hard not to scare you too much. I'm going to put up slides in a moment, but really I just want to frame this initially about, and possibly give you some reassurance. I know when we talk to people, there is a little bit of a thought that, cyber, it's a bit scary. They've got their own weird language. They talk about malware and stuff like that, and we don't understand that. There is potentially a little bit of reticence for trustees to raise this at board level because they might start getting awkward questions. So there's two things I would say to that. One is, don't be scared. There's a lot of people out in the cyber world that are more than happy to help you. There's a whole raft of information available, which I will signpost at the end of this session. And the other thing is really to take away the fear piece, is just view cyber as another business risk. That's all it is. If you looked at other business risks that may impact on your operation, you would understand those quite easily. And cyber is no different from that. It's a cyber attack is basically, something that may stop you operating in a way that you would wish to. So just get your head around the fact that it may have scary words, and it may have people like me that try and make you quite frightened. But it's not a big thing. It's something that it's there as trustees. You need to talk about it. The board need to engage with it, but there's plenty of help to make sure that you can manage your cyber journey quite successfully and quite easily. And really, without getting into a lot of the detail, which we're not going to today, there's a lot of very small, quick win actions that you can undertake that will improve your cyber resilience very, very quickly, very, very simply, and they don't cost a terrible amount of money. So without further ado, I'm going to share my slides. Tracy, you can maybe tell me if I'm doing this properly, because I always get the fear when I get to this bit.
Yes, that's working there. Thanks, Alison.
Okay. Right, I'm not sure what I'm showing you. Have you got it on full screen?
We can see all your slides at the moment rather than the presentation.
Okay. See, I told you I get the fear at this bit. Bear with me just 1 second.
It's wearing. Oh, there you go, Alison. That's you.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, we will begin. Right. Okay. You will see the slides that I've just successfully shared with you are not SCBO badged slides. There's a reason for this. This presentation has been put together by an organisation called the National Cybersecurity Centre. Now, the NCSC are the cyber gods here in the UK. They're part of GCHQ, and their mission is to make the UK the safest place to live and work online, which is no small task. They were developed and they came into inception back in 2018, and they, as I say, are the gods for all things cyber. They also have a huge amount of information available to support both the public sector, private sector, third sector, and the individual. So their website is a great place to go to. The session that we're going to go through today, this is an extract of a larger session. It was developed by the NCSC and NAVCA down in England. And it's really very focused on the third sector, which makes it quite accessible to the audience that you guys are. So hopefully you will get something from this. Hopefully not scared, but as Tracy said earlier on, please do ask any questions as you feel you want to going along. So really today we're going to talk a little bit about what a cyber attack is, what cybersecurity is, why charities are at risk from cyber attacks, and sadly they are. We're going to talk a little bit about what a cyber attack looks like and who the people who are maybe attacking your organization are. And then, yeah, really just do a very high level education about what this is all about. And if there is an appetite for more information, I'm more than happy to take any conversation offline and chat with you further on another occasion. So without further ado, a definition of a cyber attack. Now, the key word here is malicious. A cyber attack is a malicious attempt to damage, disrupt, or gain unauthorized access to systems. And when we talk about systems, we're talking about computer systems, IT networks, our devices, our tablets, our phones, the stuff that we use at work and at home, although we're generally at home these days, to really run our lives. And we do. We are so digitally connected these days. We bank online, we shop online, we live online. So we have to make sure that we do that in a secure and safe way. So a cyber attack is when somebody tries to maliciously damage, which could be, for example, deleting a database or stealing a copy of that database, disrupt your services. There's a thing called a denial of service attack. And that's when you have a website or a network that is targeted with a lot of site traffic. And the idea of that is it becomes overloaded and it stops this website or network working. It causes it to crash. It's a bit like next Boxing Day sale used to be, only we used to queue outside the shop. It's a little bit different from that. So, and that's really an attempt by malicious actors to stop you doing what it is that you do on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing is gaining unauthorized access. And that could be by trying to guess your email password or get that off of you by filling in a sort of quite legitimate looking form, which will give a cyber criminal access to your emails and any other accounts where you may be using the same username and password combination. So that's what a cyber attack is. Cybersecurity is the yin to the yang. It's putting stuff in place to stop or reduce the risk of your organization or yourself becoming a victim of a cyber attack. And the core function of cybersecurity is to protect all of the devices we use and the services we use from theft or damage, unauthorized access, because we have a huge amount of personal information that we put online as well. And that can be used against us in a variety of forms. As I mentioned before, the internet is a fundamental part of modern life. And on the back of that, cybersecurity has to be as well too. We have to make sure that what we are doing when we are online is done in a safe and secure way. That said, it's not just about staying online, being safe online. It does have some other benefits. If we get ourselves into good routines of doing backups, for example, if you had an incident that was a fire or a flood, you've got that element of business continuity that's there. Should your offices, for whatever reason, not be available, you've got backups, you've got something to restore on. So it's not just looking after ourselves, it's giving better resilience and security to your organization. So why is this so important? Cyber attacks cost a lot of money. Cyber criminals do this because they make a lot of money. And there are no organizations that are immune to this. If we look at the statistics here, even your small organizations, your small third sector organizations with turnover, charity income of under 100,000, 19% of them reported a breach or attack in the last 12 months. And when you get up to the big guys, that's over 52%. So this is big business. These figures are from 2018. They will have increased. And the other thing that's worth mentioning to you is there is a huge culture of underreporting for cyber attacks. So these figures are absolutely on the conservative side. It's happening frequently all over the sector. The monetary figure at the bottom, the £9,470, it's a frightening figure. I don't know many third sector organisations that could lose 10 grand and not be bothered by that. And that really just looks at the monetary terms behind it. What it doesn't really take into account, because you can't quantify it, is that reputational damage piece. If it gets out into the wild that you've had a data breach and it's not been managed as well as it could have been, your donors may think twice about giving money to your cause if they're thinking, well, these guys don't take care of my personal data, or they don't have their house in order. So there is a monetary term in loss of being able to operate, but there's also this big reputational piece. You also can't insure against reputational damage. So getting your house that little bit in order is a good thing to do. There's different types of attack, and we'll have a drill down into what they look like a little bit later in this presentation. But again, you're seeing the figures. Phishing emails remains the biggest, most common thing that we see. I don't know about anybody else in the room, but at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, I can set my watch by some scammer trying to tell me that they are Anna Fowley at SCVO and they want me to go out and buy Amazon vouchers because she's just way too busy to do that. The first couple of weeks, I was like, thinking about this. Anna Fowley probably wouldn't ask me to do that. And that's absolutely an example of phishing. And phishing, we could do a whole session on that in itself because it comes in a variety of different guises. And what I would say about it now, it is so incredibly sophisticated and legitimate looking. Days of Nigerian princes wanting you to take care of the couple of millions that he doesn't know quite what to do with are long gone. The stuff that you get now purporting to be from your bank, purporting to be from your suppliers, is just so legitimate and genuine looking that nobody could be criticized for falling for a phishing attack. They are state of the art. So that's the cost of cyber attack. And unfortunately, third sector organizations, charities are at risk from this sort of thing. And why? We kind of take the view in the sector that we're doing good work. Why would anybody want to target us? That's not right. But as I mentioned before, your cyber criminal doesn't view your organization as a third sector charity organization as any different from public sector, private sector. You are to your cyber criminal a source of data and a source of money, which the third sector hold. We have funds, we have personal data, we have financial data, we have maybe sensitive commercial data. We certainly have sensitive personal information. And your cyber criminal can take this and monetize this. And that's their aim at the end of the day. The other thing that we have in the third sector is a low level of awareness, particularly in smaller charities, about cyber resilience and the need for it. Everybody, particularly these days, are so stretched doing their day-to-day job that this is a thing that can be a little bit out of sight and out of mind. But as I will show you in a wee while, just doing a few little remedial actions will make sure you are that little bit more secure. We need to make sure that people in the sector, we need to get it on the risk register. We need to get the board conversations going on about cyber because it's something that is really, really important. The other thing that we have in the sector is a huge culture of trust. If somebody phones you up and said, I think you do really fantastic work, give me your bank account details and we'll make a donation to you, we give them their bank account details. We also trust the people that volunteer to work with us to do the work that they say they want to do. And we give them access to our systems that really do hold our crown jewels. So we are trusting people to be who they represent themselves to be. And sadly, sometimes that's not always the case. One of the other things that we do see is third sector organizations, charities being used as a route into a larger organization. There is a lot more outsourcing of local authorities for services to third sector organizations. And whilst your bigger fish, the local authority or corporation, may have better cyber resilience, your cyber criminal is looking for the weakest link. And it may be that your organization doesn't have its security in place quite as well, and your cyber criminal will use you as a backdoor to get into the bigger fish and to utilize the information that they share on their systems. So one of the things that I always like to compare cyber resilience, cyber security to is an analogy of your house and your next door neighbor's house. And if you think about your house and putting some cyber security type stuff or house resilience type stuff in place, if yours is a house with the big barky dog, the burglar alarm, the barbed wire fence, all of those security measures, and your next door neighbor's house doesn't have any of that stuff, your average cyber criminal is going to do almost like a cost benefit analysis and go, actually, to attack Alison's house, that's going to be way too much effort. She's got a barky dog, she's got her alarm, she's got a barbed wire. I'm going to go next door because they're not quite as secure. So one of my messages here is you don't need to do hugely complex stuff to make sure that you are in a much better position than your neighbors. So there we go. So who are charities at risk from? Now, I've got a lovely story here. I have to read this to you, and it's about the myth of cyber criminals. Okay, thanks to Hollywood, we have a perception of a cyber criminal, and it broadly follows this format. A cyber attacker, he, and it's always a he, is very young. He's late teens or early 20s. He hacked his first nuclear missile facility at the age of just 5. At the age of 12, he started on bank heists. He bought his first hoodie with the proceeds from that, and his face has not been seen since. He works alternatively for the Russian, Chinese, and Iranian and North Korean government, and spends his free time in his bedroom in darkness with green letters and numbers for wallpaper. He's very clever with computers. In fact, he's so clever, he has never been defeated. So thankfully, that's the kind of Hollywood version of that, and that's not the truth. That is very much a myth. By way of a real life example of how easy it is to fall into cybercrime, we're going to talk now about Carl. Now, Carl worked in a warehouse, earning not very much more than minimum wage, when a friend showed him that he could buy lists of email addresses and associated passwords. These had been stolen from various data breaches and were now being sold on for other criminals to use. Now, Carl will tell you he didn't have a fancy IT degree. In fact, by his own admission, he'd never been taught IT. But nevertheless, he began buying these lists off of the internet and entering the email addresses and password combinations into loyalty card websites, your Tesco's, your Nectar points. Most weren't successful, but when they were, he would convert the victim's loyalty points into vouchers and sell these vouchers for slightly less than face value on legitimate auction websites. After a while, Carl got smart. He bought a piece of software that would automate a lot of the entering of email addresses and password combinations. In the year or so before Carl was arrested for fraud, he made in the region of £150,000 from this very simple scam. Now, Carl wasn't a technical wizard by anybody's standards. He simply exploited one of the common things that humans do, and that's reuse the same username and passwords on lots of different sites because it's easy. So that dispels a little bit of the myth of what a cyber criminal looks like. So what did they get out of this? What drives your cyber criminal on? Now, mainly they are motivated by money. And as I said, if it's going to cost them a lot more time and effort to rattle at your door than it is your next door neighbors, then they aren't going to bother. Really, we have a saying in the cyber world that data is the new gold. There are ways that these guys can monetize that. The selling of username and passwords is a prime one. These are available on the dark web for less than pennies, but they can be utilized in a way where they can cost you an awful lot of money. So really, that's what your cyber criminal is about. He's not motivated by any great cause. He's motivated by his bank balance. Indirect attacks are a thing. That I mentioned previously, your charity may become a collateral damage or part of an indirect attack when your cyber criminal is looking to use you as a route into a bigger fish. When you're providing sort of outsourced services with local authorities or something like that. So charities may not themselves be targeted particularly, but they may be part of something else that's going on. And the other thing that we see is an insider threat. Now, there's two types of insider threat. As I say, we trust our staff to do what we ask them to do, but you do on occasion get episodes of maybe disgruntled employees who have left an organization that may want to act in a malicious manner. one of the things, or one of the helpful hints and tips that we give when people leave your organization is to shut down their access rights very, very quickly when they have left, because that will be you're shutting the gate on their ability to get back into systems and to do this malicious damage. The other piece of advice that we give when we're talking about giving access to networks and sort of the information that people need to do their work is to provide them with the what we call it least privileges, and it's basically just giving the people the information or access to the information that they need to do their bit of the work. You don't allow people to have access to the whole of the crown jewels. The finance people have the finance stuff, the HR people have the HR stuff, and that stops people getting into areas that they really don't need to be in. The other thing that we see is from an insider perspective is you're an inadvertent insider, and that can come in many forms. That could be your employee who is downloading what looks like a seemingly legitimate piece of software because they've clicked on that phishing link. We've got a story which I've probably told my colleagues in SCVO before. We were told a not so lovely story about cyber criminals who were using USB sticks, the little things that you plug into the side of devices. They were dropping those outside offices, with the reason behind that being, if you're anything like me, you're damn nosy. You'll pick up this USB stick and go, oh, that must be somebody in SCVOs. I'll have a look at it so I can reunite the rightful owner of this USB stick with the thing that they've dropped outside the office. So you pick up the USB stick, and with good intent, you plug that into the side of your device. It's got a piece of malicious malware on it. That malicious malware gets into your network, and your network has an infection. And that's something that we have seen cyber criminals do, and it's really just taking advantage of people's human desire to be helpful. It's a bit of a sneaky one, I have to say. The message we try and promote with inadvertent insider stuff, like clicking on your phishing links, is to get away from this blame culture. They are so incredibly sophisticated these days. So if you have an organization, always encourage people to report if they think, oh, geez, that probably wasn't the right thing to do, because that's the best way that you can close this down, you can deal with this sort of thing. And really don't have any sort of redress that is anything less than positive, because it's really not helpful. Other things that you may see for charities be attacked was probably quite unlikely. Hacktivists are hackers who are motivated by a particular cause, which could have a personal agenda or a political agenda. There's less examples of this, but you do see it in the wider world. One of the other things that we do see is, certainly for the third sector, is fake websites, and I'll talk on that in the next slide. When there is a natural disaster, for example, or something happens and people, decent humans, feel compelled to want to give a donation, we do see quite a thing of fake websites appearing purporting to be a particular charity. People go along, click on the link to give the donation, and it's taking your donation and your money elsewhere. Terrorist organizations, that's another thing that you see less so, but it may, again, if your organization goes against the agenda of the terrorist, they have been known to deface websites and make things a little bit awkward. And nation state attacks, again, they can be more of a collateral damage thing. The likelihood of a nation state attacking your charity is pretty remote, but what you may end up getting caught up in is when a nation state attacks an infrastructure. The WannaCry attack, which happened back in May 2017, which absolutely crippled the NHS, was purported or attributed to come from North Korea, and it was an attack on the critical infrastructure of the UK, but the NHS wasn't collateral damage as part of that bigger attack. So you may find out that you get yourself caught up in something that isn't aimed at you, but you're just there and in the firing line, unfortunately. So how are charities being attacked? Now, ransomware, this is where I start getting into complicated and scary words. Ransomware is something that we are seeing more of now. It's increasing in its prevalence, it's changing in its nature, and the amount of sums of money that are being asked for big ransomware attacks these days are absolutely astronomical. They have gone right through the roof. And ransomware is basically when a cyber attacker gains unauthorized access to your systems, then locks it down so you can't access it, and offers to unlock it for you with payment of a fee, generally by Bitcoin. What we're now seeing these days, and it used to happen quite quickly, cyber criminals would get into your back systems, take away a database or an element of your data, and then very quickly say, we've got this, you can't do any work until you pay us this money. But they did that very, very quickly. They came in, boom, out, wanted the money, and moved on. What we're seeing now, particularly, is cyber criminals getting into systems and basically, if they're not detected, spending 6-8 months lurking around in the back end of systems, really having a good trawl through the data that is on your network to work out what is the crown jewels, what is the best to monetize here. And we are seeing this more and more. They sit there silent, and then they will attack. And by that stage, they've potentially upset the backups that you're doing. It's just not a terribly good way of going on. So and third sector organizations are not likely to be targeted by this. Advice for ransomware: should you see it? Should you be a victim of it? The NCSE advice regarding payments of ransoms is just not to do it. These guys are criminals at the end of the day. They may not release the data that they say that they're going to give back to you. If they give it you back, they may have defaced or changed it, and a copy of it may still be out on the dark web, so you're not getting it back in. The other thing that we hear about, and I'm not sure how true it is there are ransomware suckers lists. So if you've paid a ransomware once to one set of cyber criminals, that your name or your organization name is published on the suckers list, and you are targeted again. We're also seeing multiple attacks by the same criminals to the same organizations now. They just keep coming back for more and more and more. So it's scary and not useful stuff. Malware and spyware. Malware is just another word for malicious software. And cyber criminals and attackers try to get malicious software onto your organization's systems because that enables them to have that ferret around it in the back end of your systems to look for valuable leads or information that they can use to monetize what it is that they need. Clicking on links and on phishing emails, visiting unsecure websites, putting that USB key into your network are all ways of cyber criminals getting malware onto your systems. And if you don't have good monitoring in place, it can sit there undetected for quite a while. Business email attacks, that is your phishing. As I say, I could do a whole session on phishing and what it looks like these days. What we've seen over the pandemic is we've seen a huge rise in things like supplier invoice fraud. And that's really taking advantage of the broken or the changed processes that we have. Now we're not in the office. Cyber criminals have got very adept at finding out who your suppliers are, when they invoice you, what the invoice regime is, and have started really just fraudulently recreating invoices with the supplier details on it that looks incredibly legitimate, and sending them to the organization just before you are due to do your payment run, saying, oh, guys, thanks, we've continued to supply you with widgets this month, but we've changed our bank account. Can you repay or can you pay this month's fee into this new bank account? It comes from your supplier. It makes sense. It's just before the payment run. They've done enough snooping and social engineering that they know that the amounts that they're asking for it are not outrageous. So it doesn't ring alarm bells. So we have seen a lot of this going on. And the one piece of advice which I think really covers everything that I'm talking about today, when you get something like that, is take a couple of minutes just to think, is this right? Does it sound okay? And if there's any doubt in your mind or your gut, just lift the phone. And don't use the number that's on the invoice. Lift the phone and use a number that you trust for your supplier or for the people that are asking you to make this payment, and check with their accounts department if that's legitimate. And that quick phone call may stop you being a victim of a fraud. If the gut thinks, oh, this feels a bit funny, take the time, take 5. And there's a whole campaign around to take 5 and think before you act, and just double check, because it could stop a fraud in its tracks. I mentioned fake websites and fake organizations. This happens. Criminals exploit the credibility and appeal of charities to trick donors into giving money to what appears to be a legitimate charity. When you see an actual disaster, these things come up very, very quickly. We, being decent human beings, want to do our bit, but often we're not channeling our funds in the right direction. I had a little incident during lockdown when I was watching an online concert that had been advertised on Facebook, 80s music on a Saturday night. Don't judge, it was very good. But one of the things that they had put up before the concert was a link to a charity that they were raising funds on behalf of. So if you'd enjoyed seeing Nick Kershaw looking decidedly older than he did the last time I saw Nick Kershaw, you could give a donation of money using this link. And we all got notification just before the concert was due to start that the donation links had actually been hijacked by cyber criminals, and the funds that we as 80s loving music lovers on a Saturday night were wanting to give towards this charity were being siphoned off by cyber criminals. Fortunately, that event, that organization discovered very quickly that where they thought was going, it wasn't actually the case. So they were able to get new methods of giving donation, which they changed to texts, so that they had a way to work around that. But that's the sort of thing that you see, and it's rubbish and it's horrible, but it's a real reality of it, I'm afraid. So that's really what we are up against. Hopefully I've not scared you all too much. This is where I do my help is at hand bit. Help is at hand. There's some great information, as I mentioned, on the NCSE website. There is a small charity guide, which gives you those hints and tips, those simple things that you need to or can get in place quite easy, quite quickly, quite cheaply, that will make sure that your door is a little bit more secure. So that's a very good, very accessible thing for you to have a look at. There's another product called the Board Toolkit. And again, as trustees, as board members, I would really encourage you to have a look at that too. The reason behind the Board Toolkit is to get over this language barrier, and it's to get over the reticence of people to start talking about cyber. And it gives trustees, it gives board members, it gives them the questions and the things to think about, to ask of the IT service provider. It gives you that little bit of insight and knowledge that is well worth arming yourself with, particularly if you do feel, this is out of my comfort zone. That's a great resource. A bit chunky, but it's got some good stuff in it. Top tips for staff. This is a little 25-minute e-learning video, which is available on the NCSE website. It covers all of the main stuff that staff, volunteers, people within your organization really need to be aware of, in quite a nice, accessible way. It doesn't cost anything to do, and it's something I would really encourage you to put your staff through, because it does cover that whole, baseline. This is what you need to know. Response and recovery guidance. God forbid you should be part of a cyber attack, and I hope you never are. But there's very good response and recovery guidance available on the NCSE website. It's a game of two halves. There's some remedial actions to do pre-incident to kind of get your house in order, and then there's some very good advice what you need to do should you be attacked, and what you need to really think about for your recovery. And the other thing, again, I hope you never need to use it, but there is a newly launched incident response helpline, which is hosted by our friends at the Scottish Business Resilience Centre. That's available to SMEs and third sector organisations as a point of contact to provide you with technical support should you feel you have been a victim of a data breach or a cyber attack. you lift the phone, you speak to the SBRC, explain what it is that has happened to you, and they will give you the advice and the recommendations as to what you need to do to get yourself out of this sticky mess. If they can't help you, they can triage you to the cyber big guys, the organizations that do this for a living, who have pledged to give some pro bono support to make sure that organizations can get help getting out and recovering from cyber incidents. So as I say, I hope you never need to use them, but they're very good resources should you ever find yourself in a position that you need help and advice. There is so much stuff out there to help and guide you. What to do if you fall victim? I mentioned previously, there's a huge culture of underreporting, and we would like to see more reporting of cyber incidents. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If we get more incidents reported, we will see a much bigger impression of what is actually going on, because we know it is. So in Scotland, we report to Police Scotland on 101. Out with Scotland, it's to an organisation called Action Fraud. If you have a data breach in line with your GDPR training, anything that's the risks the rights and freedoms of individuals, report that to the ICO within 72 hours of discovering that. And also, depending on what the incident itself is, OSCA have a notifiable event process that you may feel compelled that you have to follow. And there's more information of that on the OSCA website. Other regulators, other funders, that may be part of your contractual agreement. If it's not, have a think about the reputational damage piece. Do you need to inform these people just so they are aware that you've got an incident that you're managing, because they will be your best ambassadors if they have been informed and they don't get nasty surprises in the press or on Twitter. So that's that. How to learn more. Blatant plug here for Cyber Scotland Week. Cyber Scotland Week is coming up on the 22nd to the 28th of February, and it's a week-long celebration of all things cybery. There's 3 strands. There's protection, which most of the work that I do falls into, learning and skills, and innovation. There are some fantastic events coming up. There's probably about 15, 20, which are geared towards third sector organizations. And that ranges from your Cyber 101, that gives you your entry level education stuff, to information or a session on digital footprint, and what information you put out onto the internet and how it can be used against you. We are using a local third sector celebrity as the mark for that, which should be quite intriguing. There's a whole raft of stuff that is available, and I would certainly encourage anybody and everybody to have a look and go along to at least 1 or 2 of the sessions, because there's some great stuff. That's my blatant sales pitch over. In fact, that's my presentation over. I hope it's been useful. I hope I've not scared you too much. And if there's anything that you want to pick up with me independently, I'm more than happy. Please do get in touch. Tracy and the crew will be sending out details tomorrow. They'll send out the slides. But yeah, do shout anything at all, and don't have nightmares. Do sleep well. Yeah.
Thanks, Alison. Just some details up there about our trustee network, where to go on the SCVO website if you want to find out more about that. But we'll take some questions while we've got Alison and her expertise. We've actually got one in already, looking at social media, and if you have any tips for social media. I'm pressing my button, but there it is, from Fred, and he's, the guidance material that you've pointed people to, does that cover security matters re social media? Because obviously everybody's using that at the moment to communicate with stakeholders.
There's probably, well, the NCSE will have some good stuff on that. There's an organisation called Get Safe Online, who are more consumer focused, that would probably be quite a good resource to go to. From my own perspective, I go with the don't do anything, or don't put anything on social media you wouldn't want your mum to see. But that's just common sense anyway. The other thing that you really need to be aware of is your privacy settings. And just make sure if you don't want the whole world and its auntie to see what you're putting out there, you have secure privacy settings. And the other thing that is something to be mindful of, it's not necessarily what you post, it's what your friends may post. So if you're in if you're in a drunken state in a bar somewhere and your pals tag you in a photo that you don't want a potential employer to see, make sure that you have the ability to remove that tag or them ask your permission for you to be tagged in the first place. It may not be what you put out there. It may be people that you associate with that may cause you to come a little unstuck. And the statistics of people who or employers that look at the social media of people they are thinking and tempted to employ is really quite high. So it's certainly something to be mindful of.
And probably have some good, strong policies for staff and volunteers on social media use.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then you point to if something goes wrong.
Yeah, that's it. We've got a session coming up in Cyber Scotland Week. In fact, it's the Oscar session, and it's about a case study for the Institute of Statecraft, which Oscar did an investigation into. And one of the elements of that incident was the use of social media that the organisation really shouldn't have been endorsing. So that will, if people are interested in that will be quite an interesting case study, because Oscar had to go through the full investigation piece of that, and that was one of the elements of it. So make sure as an organisation, if people are tweeting on behalf of your organisation, you have given them some guidance as to what is acceptable. The other thing about social engineering is it can be used for a thing called spear phishing, or social media can be used for spear phishing. Information that you put out there could be used potentially as your password. So if you put on your Facebook that you support Hibernian and your cat's called Astro, people could take a guess that you may have used those as a password to get into your systems, because that's what folk do. So just be really, really careful what you share.
Yeah. What about LastPass, things like that for passwords? Are they good things to use?
Password managers are great. You have to remember one master password to get into the vault, and they are basically a vault of all of the passwords that you have. We encourage everybody to have a different password for every website that they access, and that's a huge ask. It's a really huge ask. But if you can use a tool like a password manager, like LastPass, that takes away some of the need to do that. You get a plugin on your browser, so whenever you go into the Laura Ashley website, it populates the website for you. So it stops you having to remember all of that stuff. The NCSC have got good guidance on using password managers, so if you're wanting to do that, definitely have a look at that. The advice around passwords themselves is getting away from the 25 characters with squiggles and high letters and capital letters and small letters, and is moving towards 3 random words. So looking at my desk, it's mug, scissors, mouse as an example of 3 random words for a password. But again, remembering all those random words is best done in a password manager. Or write it down in a book and put it in a drawer somewhere, because the likelihood of a cyber criminal coming into your house to go into a drawer to find all your passwords is pretty high.
That used to be the advice that you shouldn't write them down, but yeah.
Well, it's like, don't write them down and stick them on your screen, but it's a bit more okay to write them down, because we appreciate that having different passwords for everything is a huge ask.
Yeah. What about I don't know if you got much information on trust board papers, trustees, and maybe they're going somewhere to access the board papers, or they're going through email, they may be using personal devices there. It might be a sensitive issue that the board's discussing. What kind of tips would you give there?
It's all very difficult. I mean, in the perfect world, you would use a product that made sure that it was done in a secure environment, that you couldn't download local copies of it, that it was encrypted. That is achievable, but that sort of thing costs a lot of money. So it's really just to use some common sense about whatever it is that you do. If you print off board minutes, make sure you shred them afterwards. Use secure platforms, use encrypted ways of transmitting messaging. Really that sort of thing. Apply some common sense to it. And again, there's good guidance out there, which I can find and share with you for tomorrow's send out of all the information.
Great. Julie, I don't know, do you have any questions, anything to add?
Just a personal observation that, you know, since last March, I've noticed at a personal level, the level of emails and, you know, nudges you get has just gone up exponentially compared to previously. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the one that I've noticed that seemed new to me was people sending direct messages on LinkedIn. And that immediately gets behind a certain barrier because you make an assumption that must be somebody that you know, and it is who they say they are. So the LinkedIn direct messaging phishing was a new one on me.
Yeah. I was saying before we came on this call, we were doing the Cyber Resilience Bulletin, which we started doing at the start of the pandemic, and it was astonishing that when we saw something in the pandemic, that was reflected very, very quickly by a scam that came behind it. When we couldn't get PPE equipment, there was scammers online selling us PPE equipment. When a lot of the grant funding came up from HMRC, there was scams saying, click on this link for HMRC grant funding. The current one is vaccinations. You can buy your vaccinations. There was a thing on the news the other day about fake certificates for travel. Yeah, it's the list is endless, and the inventiveness and the speed of response from the cyber criminals is quite astonishing. The other thing you need to bear in mind is these probably aren't little Barrys sitting in his bedroom doing whatever it is he's doing. These organizations, these criminals are big organizations, and it does line their pockets. It also goes on to give money to serious and organized crime as well. So this is big industry for these guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we haven't got any other questions, but I would encourage anybody at the webinar to...
the stunned silence happens every time.
Tara, contact Alison direct through SCVO if you've got any particular questions. I'm going to put the poll back up on a scale of 1 to 10. How cyber resilient do you think your organization is? And maybe things have improved, or maybe, as Alison said, she's frightened you all and you think you're not cyber resilient at all. So we had round about 5, 6, 7 the last time. Oh, we have got a not at all now. You have frightened them, Alison.
My work here is done.
Well, what we'll be doing is we'll be sending out a lot of information tomorrow. I'm going to just talk a little bit, but I'm going to ask Alison, have you got maybe top 3 tips that you could give to a trustee who's on a board? They maybe don't have any IT specialists, and they're going to go back to the next board meeting and they're going to say, I went to this webinar, we've really got to do something. What's the most important thing do you think they could do just for a smaller organization?
I think, as I said at the start, don't be scared of this. It is just another business risk. Don't worry about the language. Don't worry about thinking you're going to look foolish. Just start the conversation. Just get people in your organization to begin to consider this, because charities aren't exempt, and you need to do something to make sure you are more secure. But take heart from the fact that some of the stuff that you can do is not hugely costly. There are a lot of people out there to help you. You just need to ask for help. But yeah, don't put your head in the sand. Don't think just because we're a third sector organization, we're not going to get targeted. You're just a cash cow to your cyber criminal. So yeah, let's start talking about it. Ask for help. There's plenty of people that want to make sure that your organization will survive should you have a cyber attack. Yeah,
that's good advice. Just a final question here, and I actually wondered about this myself. Zoom bombing board meetings. I heard that there was a lot of this about. Any tips?
It's kind of over now. Zoom security, when we all went, oh, let's go on to Zoom back in March, was pretty woeful. And they've now really upped their game with security. So there's a lot more checks and balances in place that should stop that happening. They're using functionality like the waiting room, vetting all of the people that accept the invitation to make sure that they who they are, all that sort of thing. But it's not such a big thing anymore.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Well, that's the end of this session, and I hope you found it all useful. As I said, we'll email out the slides to you tomorrow with more information. And before we go, I would encourage you all to join the SCVO Trustees Network, and you can find more details on our website about that. Here's the link. My colleague's going to put that up. We've got another 2 webinars planned, one in March on mediation. So if your board is all fallen out, your trustees, well, things you can do to stop you getting to that point, and also where mediation can help. And then in May, we're going to look at climate change and whether trustees are climate confident, what they can do within their organisation. So yeah, have a look on the SCVO website and do book for them. And it just remains for me to say thank you to Alison and to Julie and to you all for joining us today. Thank you very much. Good night.